Hi, my name is Eric Edmeades, and I'm the founder of the Business Freedom Academy, and I'm really glad you're here watching this video right now because I know how powerful it can be for you. We're going to be talking about Inception Marketing. In essence, we're going to be talking about how to dramatically increase the number of leads that come into your business and how to dramatically improve your closing percentage with those leads. Before we get to that, though, I'd like to give you a little bit of personal background so you understand where I'm coming from. First thing you need to know, I'm not a motivational speaker, I'm a realist, I'm a business guy. I started my business life in Vancouver when I got a job as the very first full-time employee of a tech company. We were doing mobile data capture, barcode scanning, wireless networking, and that sort of stuff. And I worked for that company for 6 or 7 years before I left and started my own business in a similar industry. In fact, in the same industry in a completely different country, in England. I ran that business for 9 years before I sold it to private investors, and I sort of semi-retired at that point. I spent the next 2 years traveling all around the world, working with business owners and entrepreneurs, doing lots of speaking and consulting, and I had a ton of fun doing it. Until one day I had the opportunity to buy my next company. And the company I bought at this point was in Northern California. It was a Hollywood special effects company doing practical special effects and really, really cool film production on movies like Pirates of the Caribbean 3, Transformers, Elysium, and many others. While running that business, I also started some other companies, including Kerner 3D Camera Technologies, where we built 3D camera systems that also worked on many of those same movies. We also started a medical simulation company that sold very, very high fidelity medical simulation dummies to the US Army. I mention this to you because I've had kind of an eclectic business background. I've had a number of different businesses in a variety of different industries and in many different countries. And that gives me a little bit of a different perspective than many of the sort of business teachers or business lecturers out there. Inception marketing that we're going to cover now is born out of a very simple understanding, and that is that marketing has changed. The rules of the game have changed entirely. Where it used to be all about talking about you, your products, your services, features and benefits, where it used to be all about you, now it's all about the client. It's entirely about the client. And so what you're going to learn in this video series, and if you ever come to one of my live workshops, is the strategic approach to massively increasing the number of prospects that come to your business and figuring out how to convert them and making sure that not only do they want to buy the product or service that you're selling, but that they specifically want to buy it from you and not from anybody else. So with that, let's jump right in. What we're going to do over the course of the next 3 videos is touch on some very key points of what Inception Marketing is. And in this video, we're going to talk about specifically what Inception Marketing is and how you can get started in developing your first campaign. So the clue to Inception Marketing is in the name. The name Inception, the word Inception in English means the beginning. And what we're talking about here is figuring out a strategic way to make sure that the idea, that the thought, that the notion that somebody wants to buy something begins in their own mind. So rather than the old sort of more 1980s model of hammering the idea into somebody's head, what we now want to do is incept the idea into somebody's head. We want to be very strategic about it. What we're talking about here is marketing that is a lot more like playing chess than the old school marketing, which is a lot more like playing darts. So let me give you kind of a silly example. I'd like you to imagine for a minute that, let's say I'm a 14-year-old boy and I really, really, really want to go to Disneyland. Like I just want to go so badly. So how will I do that? Well, the average 14-year-old that hasn't done my program would use traditional 1980s form of marketing and selling. How would that work? It would involve pester power. Mom, Dad, we gotta go to Disney, we gotta go to Disney. And then when that failed, they would upgrade and they would use guilt, wouldn't they? Oh, but all the other kids get to go. Oh, the other parents are, you know what I'm talking about, right? Traditional, hardcore, pressurized selling. No, today's 14-year-old, a smart 14-year-old, a 14-year-old that understands Inception is gonna take a different approach. Step 1. They're going to want to identify who their ideal target audience is. Well, in this case, that's really straightforward. Their ideal target audience is going to be their parents, right? That's the person that they need to influence. Okay, good. Step 1 complete. Step number 2, they need to think about what's most important to their target audience. Now, this is a very big change from the way marketing has traditionally worked. In the old days, everybody, when they're designing a website, a brochure, everything that they're talking about was themselves, the features and benefits. No. What we're going to do is take a step back and figure out what's most important to our target audience. And this is key, what's most important to that target audience, irrespective of our product or service. That's a very important point in this. So what we're going to do with the parents, for example, is we're going to take a step back and say, all right, I'm the 14-year-old kid. What's most important to my parents? Well, they're worried about my safety. They're worried about my education. They're worried about making sure they stay off drugs. They're worried that I don't get anybody pregnant or that I don't get pregnant, as the case may be. They're worried about university acceptance. They're worried about a whole lot of different things. They're thinking about a whole lot of things that aren't Disneyland. Okay, so now what I want to do is figure out how to bridge the gap. Step 3 is going to be to engage them or get their attention. So how am I going to do that? Well, by understanding their psychology, by understanding what they're worried about, I'm going to have the opportunity to engage them. And here's how it's going to work. Instead of walking down the stairs and going, you know, Mom, Dad, I was thinking that you guys should send me to Disney for my birthday because all the other kids get to go. No, we're going to have a whole different attitude. We're going to walk down and go, hey, Mom, Dad, I've been thinking a lot about university entrance requirements. Do you think I might have their attention at this point? Of course I do. The first thing they're going to wonder is, where is our real kid and what did you do with him, right? Like, this is going to be a change of approach because it's a very different psychology. But mostly what's important about this is they're going to be paying attention. And once I've got their attention, now I can move into Inception. And how's that going to work? Well, I'm going to explain that the reason that I mentioned this to you today, Mom and Dad, is that as I've looked into university entrance requirements, what I've found is that grades are a whole lot more important than I ever really realized. And I now understand why you've been pushing me in that area. So I definitely need to step up my efforts in that area. I also found that grades are only part of the mystery. Another big part of what's important in university entrance is creativity and having a life. They don't want a bunch of robots that only have grades. They want kids that are doing stuff. And so creativity is really valued in a lot of the top schools. So I've been doing a lot of research into people like Steven Spielberg and Elon Musk, Thomas Edison, Nikola Tesla, Walt Disney, lots of people. And right now, I'm pretty focused on Walt Disney. So if you've got any books or blogs, or if there's any interesting information you have about Walt Disney, I'd really appreciate it if you could give it to me. Thanks very much. And I might leave at that point. Think about the conversation that my parents have. When they get over the initial shock that I've walked in and talked about my university entrance requirements and wanting to step up my grades, once they've gotten past all that, they're going to start thinking, wow, how can we follow this? How can we stimulate this thought process? And you know what's going to happen? They're going to start talking. They're going to be like, hey, do you have any books or do you have any blogs? We could do some Googling right now. Do you know what? We should take them to Disneyland. Now, I know this may sound really basic and simple to you, but it works. And here's the beauty of it. It was their own idea. And when the decision to purchase is the client's own idea, it is so much more powerful than when you push them into the idea. What you want is for the client to realize that they want to buy from you. You want them to realize it. And this is very different than putting the idea, than pushing and saying, look, you need to do this, features, benefits, features, benefits. Because what you're generating in somebody is the origin of the moment or the inception of the idea. And what that's going to generate in them is a feeling like, I've always wanted to do that. Have you ever said that? Maybe not. Maybe your friends, you've heard people say that. You know, I'll tell people, oh, I'm going to Africa. And they go, oh, I've always wanted to go to Africa. Really? Always? Like you were born, you came out, doctor smacked you on the bum, and you turned to your parents and said, I got to go to Africa? No, you didn't always want to go, but something in your life triggered the idea that you really wanted to go, and it started creating in you the feeling that you always wanted to go. A really good inceptive campaign will do the same thing for your prospects. It will put them in a position where they start thinking to themselves, I want to buy this product or service, and frankly, I always have. That's powerful. Now, the way we're going to do this training program here online is so very cool. I'm going to give you some of the points like I just have, and then I'm going to cut to me teaching these principles to live audiences around the world so that you're going to see how it really works. So in the video that I'm about to show you, you're going to get a complete breakdown of what is involved in those first steps of identifying your ideal target market and then engaging them. And it's going to give you some real world examples of how to make it work. So in the video you're about to see, I'm going to deliver an inceptive story that's really going to demonstrate for you fully that this really works. Now, Some background so you understand where you're headed here. This is a video that was shot at a live event in Tallinn, Estonia, and what you're about to hear me talk about is a story about me going hunting with some Bushmen in East Africa. Bear with the story. Initially, you might be thinking to yourself, why am I watching a video about hunting in East Africa? Bear with me. You'll understand, because what's going to happen in this video is you're going to see a moment where inception takes place, where a buying decision gets triggered in the audience, and it's very, very powerful stuff. Then, in the next two videos, what you're going to get is a deep dive into how you do the evaluation of your target audience's drivers, figuring out their psychology, trying to figure out really, really what's important to them so that you can engage them properly. And then, in the third video, I'm going to show you something incredibly powerful, and it's this simple. Once you've triggered people into the idea that they want to buy, once you've triggered them, here's what's really, really important. That you then teach them how to buy, and you make sure that that leads them to the logical conclusion that they want to buy from you and not from somebody else. And I'm going to show you exactly how to do that in the third video. So for now, let's go over to Tallinn, Estonia, and let's hear all about the Bushmen, and let's see how Inception works.
So we're going to talk about Inception marketing, and as I said, Inception is about the beginning. So we're talking about creating marketing that is so effective that it doesn't look like marketing, and it simply gets a client into a mindset of wanting to buy without needing a lot of persuasion. And I'm gonna tell you why this is really important, because you see, have you ever done one of these surveys to get free Wi-Fi or something, and then they say to you like, it's like a survey. When are you going to buy your next computer? When are you buying your next cell phone? Have any of you done these surveys? Yeah, they're just surveying the market to see what the economy's like, what people's confidence is like, what they're planning to buy, and so. Here's what they have found through all these kind of studies, is that basically, at any point in time, about 3% of the market is buying whatever you're selling. It's just kind of a weird number. Let's try it out. Play with me on this so we can prove it to everybody. There's enough people here we can do a good market survey. How many people in this room in the next week or two are going to buy a new cell phone? How many people? New mobile phone. Look, 3%. And then how many people are going to buy a new computer in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks? How many? Look again, it's about 3%. And then how many people are going to buy a new car in the next month or so? Look, it's 3% again. Anybody for a new house in the next month or so? New house? Oh, look, it's even 3% on the house. Running shoes. How about running shoes? How many people for new? Look, it's 3%. Now, this may seem a little bit silly to you, but here's why we're doing it. Who are most companies marketing to? The 3%. If you think about your fancy SEO campaigns, you got to have your SEO on your website. You do. Don't take me wrong. You do need good SEO, search engine optimization. But here's the thing. All that's doing is making sure that the 3% can find you. You're not thinking about the other 97%. This is a huge thing to realize in marketing. And so I want to share something with you. Let's try it like this. So I mentioned before that I originally was doing lots of speaking about health and nutrition. And when I first started speaking about health and nutrition, I was really heavily focused on human history. It turns out my great-grandfather discovered the oldest ever Homo sapiens skull, a 259,000-year-old skull. And so I became really curious about early history and early humans. And then one day, I got an opportunity, I got this invitation, I'm not kidding you, to go visit with Bushmen. I mean, actual how many of you have seen the movie The Gods Must Be Crazy? It's one of the greatest little independent films ever. If you haven't seen it, it's a must. And it's about these Bushmen, and these guys are true Bushmen. I mean, they hunt and they gather, they have no money, they don't have jobs, they don't even have homes. They move all the time. They move with the animals, they move with the water, and so on. And I got a chance to go visit with these guys so I could learn a little bit about what human history used to be like. And so I got out there. In fact, I've got pictures of these guys. Let's see if we can, oh, that's not it. Let's get the, anybody want to see a Bushman? All right, here we go. Let's get to the Bushman. All right, that's these guys. I was just with these guys about 4 months ago. The guy on the second from the left is the chief of that village. He's a really great guy, really, really fun. I had sent out this email to some of my close contacts and said, hey, do any of you have questions you would like me to ask the Bushman? And Tony Robbins wrote back to me and he says, yeah, I've got two. I want to know what the purpose of life is, and I want to know what happens when we die, what they think, what the Bushmen think, right? And so I asked the chief, and he says, the purpose of life is to be who you are. Wow, I like that. He goes, be who you are. I'm a bushman, so I be a bushman. You're the city dweller, so you be the city dweller. And I go, all right, that sounds good, but what if I change who I am and I suddenly want to be a bushman too? And he goes, then do it fully. Then come and be a bushman and be a bushman. Just like whatever you're going to be, this guy should have his own like DVD program and seminars. He was really he was so inspirational. Then I said, what do you think happens? I gave him Tony's second question, what do you think happens when we die? And he looks at me like, it's not a matter of what we think happens, they just know. And I go, well, okay, then what happens when we die? And he goes, it ends. Yeah, okay, cool. So here's another one. Actually, I think this is me with one of the other tribes that I was with. And now I want you to check this guy out. This is really fascinating from a health perspective. Look at this guy. Who would like to have arms like this? And never have to go to he's never been to a gym in his life. Never. Now, what he's doing right now, he's got a bow, and he's shooting at that piece of wood. This day, what they did is they said, hey, we're going to have a little competition to see who can hit the piece of wood with the arrow. And so they gave me a bow and my 4 arrows, and they gave our guide a bow and 4 arrows, and 2 of the bushmen. And we all got there, and we got back, and we cranked out and fired out. And I got 2 of my arrows into the piece of wood. I was so excited. And everybody else only got 1. Like, I actually beat the bushmen at their own arrow competition. I was like, oh, this is so cool. I think they may have let me win. It's possible. But what was really cool is after that, they invited me to go hunting with them. Like, again, I want to put this in perspective. This is what grocery shopping used to be like. It's more dangerous, takes a lot more energy. They said, do you want to go? Now, look, if you're into human history and all this stuff, and they go, hey, do you want to come hunting with us? What do you say? Yes, I'm in. So I'm going to go hunting with these guys. And here's where it gets really fascinating. I go hunting with them, and the first thing I notice about them is that they don't make very much noise when they're running through the bush. They don't make much noise. They kind of, go along, and they're quite quiet. And then how about me right behind them? I'm quiet like the night, right? No. I'm like the city guy, crashing, smashing, and I'm suddenly going, oh, these poor guys. This is their grocery shopping, and if I make this much noise, the groceries are going to hide. They're not going to eat. So I better do something about this. I better figure it out. Of course, I remember. I've been to lots of programs. I've studied peak performance, and you know what? I remember, hey, what did Tony Robbins always say? Hey, if you got somebody who's getting the result you want to have, model them. Figure out what they're doing to create their success and model it. That's what I've been doing in my whole business life. Why couldn't I now do it with the Bushmen? So I thought, all right, let's model them. So I started paying attention to the way they held their head, the way they held their body, the way they ran. And so I started running like them. And I noticed something. They run on the fronts of their feet, not on the backs. So they run like, oh, that makes a difference, doesn't it? By the way, why did I have to learn this from the Bushmen? I am a parent. How many of you are parents? If your children would like to sneak around the house, do they walk on the front or the back of their feet? Front. Do you guys have the expression tippy toes? Right? That's all they're doing. They're running along on the fronts of their feet like that. So I'm thinking, okay, cool. So now I'm running along. Not only are you more quiet when you hit the ground, but you can also choose your steps better. And so I was so quiet. That one of the bushmen turned around and make sure I didn't get eaten by a lion. Still there. And after about an hour and a half of this, something monumentous, something truly amazing happened. And that was that I realized that my knee was not hurting. And this was amazing because I ran the marathon, the London Marathon in the year 2000, and I hurt my knee so badly that I had to give up running. I could not run. Anything more than, 2 or 3 kilometers, no way, couldn't run. I had to stop. And here I was running through the bush with these bushmen for hours, and my knee wasn't hurting. And I started thinking about this. They're running the way people have run for millions of years. I was running the way I was taught how to run in high school. Their way seems to be working better. So I started thinking about why it might be working better. And I realized that one of the reasons it might be working better is that if you land on the fronts of your feet, it's soft. You land on your heels and it's pretty hard. There's a shock to it. And so I started thinking about that. I thought, that's really fascinating because what happens is all the running shoe companies, don't they put air and gel and springs and things in the heel to take away that shock, right? That should be helping us. But then I started thinking about this. You know, with boxing, what do you think's more dangerous? Boxing with the big gloves or boxing with the bare hand? What do you think? How many people think that boxing with the big gloves would be more dangerous? How many people think boxing without the gloves would be more dangerous? See, you would think that. You would think that. It would make sense, but here's the difference. One thing is, when you have a bare hand, you can't hit them so many times. It hurts. You and them. They can't take so many punches. You can't give so many out. So the fight doesn't last so long. When you have those big gloves on, you can punch them for hours. It doesn't hurt you, and it doesn't really hurt them so bad. But what happens to their brain inside their head? Bad, horrible things. Because when we take away that shock by putting all the padding on there, we take away the proper communication that the skin was supposed to give us. The skin was supposed to say, hey, don't get hit like that again. But then we put the big glove on. Oh, yeah, you can do that again. Go and watch Muhammad Ali rumble in the jungle. Watch him take, 15 rounds of Foreman punching him in the head again and again and again. And then watch a video of him now. I'm telling you that the padding is not helping. It's not helping with the heels either. What's going on now is we have all this padding in our heels. It's giving us permission to land in a way that we would never land when we were running. I tell you right now, if you took off your shoes and just ran down the floor over here, you would land on your heel maybe once, maybe twice, but after that, you would never do it again. It hurts. And the padding in our heels has taught us to run that way, which is why everybody has a brace on their knee and a problem with their shoulder and a problem in their hip. It's phenomenally interesting. And so I thought, I'm running along and I'm thinking about those stupid, do you guys have these here in Estonia, those crazy looking toe shoes? Do you have them? Oh, look at that, silly fad. You know, crazy looking shoes. But I started thinking about them. I started thinking about these crazy shoes and I thought, you know what? I'm gonna try them out. So I go to this sporting goods store in England. I got back to England from Africa, and I got to the sporting goods store, and I walked in, and there were other people in the store. But I don't know, have you ever gone into a store and you needed to buy something you didn't want anyone to see you buying? I don't know what you were buying. I was buying shoes. So I went in there to get these shoes, and I tried them on, and she goes, now, take it easy with these shoes. And I go, what do you mean, take it easy? No kidding, in the month before I bought them, I'd been up and down Kilimanjaro. I'd been hunting with the Bushmen for days on end. I mean, I was in the peak shape of my life. What do you mean, take it easy? And she goes, I'm just saying, with these shoes on, you'll run differently. And I go, that's why I want to try them, to run differently. She goes, yes, but when you run differently, you'll use muscles you haven't used in a long time. When you land on the fronts like this, you're going to engage all these muscles on the front that you don't usually use. So take it easy. I thought, whatever, I'll take it easy. Oh, by the way, do you know of a park anywhere nearby that nobody runs in so I can go there alone? She goes, if you go early enough, you might be okay. So I go off to this park and I run 10 kilometers. That's me taking it easy. Now, my knee did not bother me at all. And not at all. I run no problem today. I carry barefoot running shoes with me wherever I go. My muscles, they did hurt a lot the next day, but my knee did not. Because I realized that I didn't have a bad knee. Wait, it's such a crazy idea to have do you guys use that expression here? Oh, I have a bad knee. Do you have that? People, oh, a bad elbow, bad knee. You know, however your knees came into existence, if you're more religious and God gave them to you, or if you're more into science and they evolved, I don't really care which it is. Here's what I'm thinking. They're a pair. They should probably run out pretty close at the same time as each other. One should not run out when I'm 25 years old. I don't have a bad knee. I had a bad running strategy. And so I needed to change that running strategy. Now, let me ask you a couple of questions. Do you find the Bushmen interesting? Yeah? Is it an engaging story? Here's the real question I have for you. How many people, and I know audience interaction, you think I can't see you because of the bright lights and all this stuff. I can. I want to know how many people in this room right now are thinking, wow, maybe I really do need to look at getting new running shoes. How many people? You see the numbers? We're talking about a third of the room, up from 3%. A third of the room, up from 3%, with no selling. You can do this.
So how was that? Did you see how it worked? Let's think about this because it's really, really important. You see, what this demonstrates is that engaging content that speaks to the audience at a level that interests them gives you the opportunity to build for yourself credibility and authority that can help you lead them toward the buying decision you want them to arrive at. So what I want to do right now is go through the steps of Inception Marketing for you so you understand the entire program. So you know exactly what it is that you'll get when you come to one of our live events and the highlights that we're going to touch on during this video training. The very first step is to identify your overall target market. This is important. I know all the marketing experts out there saying, you have to have a niche market. You got to go niche, 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 niche. Now, there's some truth to that and we'll address it. The challenge is for a lot of people is once they've been ordered to niche, they start feeling a sense of, scarcity. Like if I go really, really narrow, if I go too narrow, then I'm going to leave all kinds of money on the table. I'm going to miss out on lots of market potential. And so what we first do is decide for a given product, service, or company what the overall target market is. Who is everybody that we want to sell to? Then, having done that, having unleashed our creativity on the full scope of possibility for our company or our product or service, then what we do is we develop a list of ideal target markets. Ideal target markets. And so what that means is subdividing our overall target market into specific niche markets. So for example, let's say that I have a product that I would like to sell to pet owners. Well, pet owners might be an overall target market. In fact, I might even modify the overall target market to pet owners or likely pet owners. So anybody who owns pets or might own pets. But then if I want to do a little bit more of a deep dive, what I'm going to do is start thinking about the sort of micro psychologies that exist within that larger target market. So for example, cat owners and dog owners, they're different. They buy pets for entirely different reasons. I often think to myself that somebody buys a dog because they would like an unconditional best friend, and somebody gets a cat because they want a roommate that doesn't pay rent, right? Like, I'm kidding. I like both cats and dogs, but the point is that the psychology is different for cat owners and dog owners. How about, aren't there families that own dogs or single people that own dogs? Families that own cats or single people that own cats? How about bird owners, reptile owners? You see, there's a variety of different people at different socioeconomic groups, in different geographic locations, different types of pets they have. And by really expanding what our potential ideal target markets are, we create a potential for ourselves to create much more targeted marketing. That's what we're really talking about. As an example, I'd like you to imagine writing a book about dog training. Now, imagine that you have a dog, maybe you do, and you want to buy a book on dog training. You go to the store, and there's a book, and it says, How to Train Any Dog. Okay, well, you were looking for a book on dog training. That could be interesting. But then you look over at the other side, and there's a whole shelf of books, and they all look quite similar, but the one says, How to Train Siberian Huskies, How to Train Chihuahuas, How to Train, etc., etc., etc. Now tell me something. If you have a chow, and there's a book there that says How to Train a Chow, aren't you going to rather buy that book over the generic How to Train a Dog book? Of course you are. Carefully, strategic, and targeted marketing speaks to your psychology. And so when we get our niche market, when we go into these ideal target markets, what we're saying is not that this is the only one we'll go after, but it's the one we're going after right now. Then, once we've gone after that market and we've saturated it, then we're going to move to another ideal target market and continue that process. All right, the next step, once we've got our ideal target market, is to dive in and identify what drives them. Like we talked about, right? With the parents and going to Disney, we're going to figure out what drives them, what's most important to them, what's in their psychology, what are they worried about? By understanding them, we're going to be able to go to the next step, which is how to engage them or to engage them. At this point, what we're talking about is developing a message, often a promise, that's going to deliver something specifically within their value set. It's going to speak directly to what's going on for them. You're going to hear an example in later videos where I talk a little bit about selling to wedding photography to brides. Well, what we want to do at that point is really understand what's important to the bride about her wedding. The challenge is that initially we might think, oh, well, she wants to look beautiful, she wants a great dress. Those observations are still run through the filter of wedding photography. We want to completely step back from that and simply think to ourselves, what's the most important thing to the bride? And we'll discover that more in the videos that come. Once we've figured out what's important to them, then we're going to engage them by making a promise that speaks to those values. that makes a commitment to deliver them value in an area that they are specifically interested in. Once we've done that, we're going to have earned the right to deliver an inceptive story. An inceptive story is generally delivered in one of two structures. One is it's a list of important information to the prospect that is then stitched together with emotive stories. You see, stories are very important to the process because stories evoke emotion, and emotion is the glue that creates memory. And so what we're going to do is maybe have 7 points of information that we're going to deliver to them, each point anchored in by a powerful story. Another way to do it would be like the Bushman story, a story that has some great data built right into it. Then, once we've delivered that inceptive story, we're going to move to the next very important point, and that is something we call setting the buying criteria. You see, your inceptive story should be designed to build a sense of credibility and authority. And because you've built this sense of credibility and authority, the prospect trusts you and they trust your sense of authority. And so now you're in a position to advise them as to how to make a great buying decision. And so you're going to do a process called setting the buying criteria, which is going to teach them not only to buy from you, but specifically not to buy from second-rate competitors. This is really exciting stuff. So what we're going to do in the next 2 videos is do a deep dive into how do we determine what is driving them. We're going to look at our prospect's psychology and try to figure out what are some of the ways that we can really dive into their psychology. And then in the next video, we're going to dive really deeply into the process of setting the buying criteria. In other words, teaching the prospect to buy from you and not from somebody else. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. I'll see you in the next video.